It's time for Market Explainer, your number one business news podcast. Hosted by Danny and the big man. And it starts right now.
All right, well, let's move on to this next story. But before we do that, of course, I want to tell you about our sponsor for this segment, Big Man Gear. Big Man Gear is the big man's idea of a funny t-shirt brand. You should check it out at bigmangear.com. That'll send you right to the Amazon Prime store. It is packed and shipped personally by our good friend Jeff Bezos. When he's not flying dick rockets into the sky, he's packing Big Man shirts. That is bigmangear.com.
Absolutely. You'll see some new ones coming out, including social skills, please loading. Okay. Please wait while loading. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Again, your idea of a funny words, man, as always.
All right, what do we got next, Danny?
This next one is pretty good. My best friends over at General Motors, who I consult for, as everyone knows. I don't think people realize I'm joking when I say this, but anyways, they are taking on Carvana, which, by the way, has been extremely controversial, and CarMax with their own marketplace called CarBravo.
Well, Carvana is definitely, they're in hot water right now for a whole bunch of different reasons.
A bunch of different reasons.
But yes, I think General Motors, CarBravo, which I think is an awful name.
Terrible name.
It's awful. Just
so stupid.
So congratulations, Car. Isn't that what Bravo, Bravo's congratulations, right?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Bravo, happiness, whatever. Anyway, the point is, awful name. Absolutely awful name. But
you're a multi-billion-dollar company with hundreds of millions of dollars, with a huge marketing department, and you're telling me CarBravo is the best you could come up with?
Well, I think in today's world, I don't think General Motors in this case, and again, this is always just my opinion, and that's why you're here at Market Explainer, is I don't think General Motors looks at Carvana even as competition or CarMax as competition, because they don't matter in the grand scheme of General Motors. I think what this is, though, I think the biggest problem General Motors, Ford, any of these big companies has between them and their customers are dealerships. Because dealerships have the ability to do whatever the hell they want to do, right?
Correct.
Because they buy the car, and once they buy the car from General Motors, and there are laws all across the United States that General Motors cannot sell directly to consumers, they all have to go through dealerships. Correct. So dealerships have legally put themselves in the middle. The problem is General Motors has very little control once they sell it to a dealership, what that car salesman at that dealership does to you from a customer service standpoint, what they fix from their mechanic standpoint, right?
Correct.
And all these things. And General Motors has looked at that as a pain in the ass for years at this point.
And they're looking at companies like Tesla, which have done a direct sales strategy, which in most states is illegal. And, Elon Musk, to his credit, and listen, I am a free market person. So if you have to get the government to pass a law to create a good old boys club so you can maintain points on, so it makes no sense that you can walk into Walmart and you can buy competing products from Walmart, such as, you can buy the lotion from P&G, or you can buy the organic whatever. It makes no sense that there isn't a company like CarMax that you just go, okay, yeah, we have 6 Fords and 7 Chevrolets. If you know people who own franchise dealers, it's good money, but it also comes with headaches, right?
Well, there are people that dealerships are so awful on average.
Yes.
That there are literally companies out there that you can go and hire to help you buy a used car or a new car because their niche is, hey, this is a fake fee, or their niche is the information they have that you don't, right?
Correct.
And negotiating and that kind of stuff.
And most of those people used to be finance managers at large franchise dealers, because I know 2 car buyer consultants. They charge you a flat fee. And I know somebody was looking for a very rare Mercedes-AMG car when it was brand new. And it was like $25,000 that this guy saved him, and he charged him $500.
Yeah.
Um,
But this is
yeah,
what to me, this is what General Motors is doing. General Motors
yes,
wants to control how you deal with customers at your
yeah,
dealership. And they can't do it directly, but what they can do is develop a program like
right,
this where they want some transparency. And if you want to sign up for it as a dealership, if you have
yeah,
Danny's GM dealership and
right,
I have Big Man's dealership and you want to
right,
sign up for it, you're going to abide by these rules. And if you
right.
don't sign up for it. And
So
I
let
will.
right. So let me tell you a couple reasons why. A couple of things. I think they call this CarBravo because they want branding distance from this business. Because if it fails, they don't want it to be like, well, General Motors failed at this.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
here's the other thing. I think they're looking at innovative. Tesla's great innovation, honestly, was how they Ubered into the economy. Because, Uber came into the marketplace and
Mm-hmm.
said, oh, there's laws? Middle finger to that. We're not doing that.
We're going
And
to try to
Tesla,
bypass every law in a roundabout way.
credit where credit's due. I appreciate them for that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, similarly, Tesla came in and said, we're just doing direct bid. That's just how we do business, right? So I think General Motors is saying, and I agree with this thesis, in 5 to 10 years, we won't be forced into this franchise model. So they want to build some sort of direct sales infrastructure right now today. And they know that there's so many companies competing for there's Vroom, Carvana.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 or 4 companies now. And I've legitimately done some contract work for a couple of them where they just show up with a flatbed. And they
Mm-hmm.
showed up to a lady's office with a flatbed. And here's the SUV. You bought it. You drive around. You go through and you sign a limited power of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And bing, bang, boom. Here's your SUV. There's no dealership. You didn't walk anywhere. The price is pre-negotiated. You can look at the average price of a GMC Yukon. We're charging right in the middle. Here's this price. Do you want it? Do you not want it? You get two
Right.
weeks to return it. And they're able to solve a lot of the different, pain points of buying a used car. And General Motors is saying, well, we can get in that business. And my guess is that with a little bit of time, they're going to end up owning a company like a CarMax or something like that, or not CarMax, sorry, Carvana, something like that. And my guess is what's going to happen is they're going to end up going bankrupt. Carvana is going to end up bankrupt,
Well, yeah,
and
because this is a model that General Motors can steal without
yes,
buying up Carvana, right?
correct.
They can just, okay, hey, I give you credit for you worked out the model, but
There's an
we can
innovation
hire
in it.
everybody to do what there's nothing proprietary about it, right? And as a bonus to this, I'm going to use it as leverage to rein in a bunch of these dealerships that overcharge people, that take advantage of people, that are adding
Correct.
this, adding that, because it's affecting our image overall, right?
Correct.
And I get to put leverage on them because I'm going to say, hey, you're either going to buy into this or you're not, and the people that buy in are going to get first these other perks, right? And
Correct.
you're not, and you know what I mean, and eventually you're going to get less business than the people that do it our way, right?
Right.
I think they're trying to clean up the middleman industry in the automotive industry, and that includes on the used car side, which is notorious. We've all
Yeah.
heard the cliche used car salesman, whatever, and
Yeah.
these cars that go through this program, and again, as always, if you know anything about the car business, you know that General Motors, Ford, all of these companies push everything off on the dealership,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
don't,
Of
your
course.
truck doesn't go to General Motors, it goes to your
No.
local
No, no.
dealership. They have
Right.
to deal with it from the General Motors standpoint, what's covered and
Right.
not covered and all that. So
Right.
I guarantee you all of these policies that they're pushing, which is warranty coverages for all the people that are going through this are all going to
Right.
come with warranties, whether they're used or new,
Right.
right? They're all going to come with some kind of warranty. They're all going to be standardized from what they call a black book. Everybody's familiar with
Yeah.
Kelly's Blue Book. They're going to be
Right.
using their black book method. So it's all, the whole point of this is transparency. They are trying to
Correct.
create, because that's big in today's industry,
Yeah.
right? Customers want transparency.
Because we're getting transparency from every other industry,
Right.
right? T-Mobile, I forget the guy's name, John Ledger, came in as CEO of T-Mobile, I don't know, 15 years ago, and he started cleaning up the business. And because of John Ledger, everyone else had to start competing. So I'm a T-Mobile customer, have been for a long time. I can just leave T-Mobile whenever I feel like it. Does anybody remember 2-year contracts?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Well,
And
and
listen,
today's of buying phones on 2 years is the same rate as 2 year contract, right? You
yes. So
leave, you got to
like,
pay off the phone, and
yeah. So here's the thing: is like, it's they. All he did was reorganize the bureaucracy, but the point is, it created transparency, or at least the feeling of transparency.
mm-hmm,
And listen, I love the fact that I love how transparent he forced the rest of the industry into being,
mm-hmm,
and it's been fantastic for T-Mobile's business. They're in most markets, they're number one or two, they're number two, two against the Verizon or AT&T, but they're priced significantly lower. So what the similar thing has happened here is Tesla has kind of created this competition, and these companies like CarMax, Carvana, Vroom have created a model and they've tested market acceptance,
mm-hmm.
and because of because of Dos Equis, people have accepted this new model of buying a used car. And now General Motors, with its huge coffers, gets to come in. And when I say I think they're going to end up owning Carvana, here's what I should correct that and make a better prediction. I think Carvana is going to go bankrupt, and I think their car vending machines that we have one in South Austin.
Sure.
They're a sight to behold. They're pretty cool. Okay,
They are very cool to look at, and I have no idea how they actually make money on
and
it.
yeah, here's what I do think happens. I think Carvana goes bankrupt, and they're not going to buy Carvana out. They're going to wait till the end of that bankruptcy, and they're going to come in and pick the bones. They're
Yeah,
going to get
buy the real
staff.
estate.
That's what they're going to end up with. It's not
Right.
Carvana's business. They're going to have the real estate. Carvana's business right now, they're having a problem with, hey, and several states are saying we're going to invalidate your dealer license.
Yeah, you're licensed to sell
Because
cars.
so what's happening is Carvana's model is, hey, I'm in Austin. You want this particular SUV? It's in Tennessee. It's an extra $500. We'll ship it to you. Now, if you've ever shipped a car, it costs probably $1,000 to ship that car. It's not easy.
No, no.
They're charging 500 because they got enough margin in the car that 500 just offsets the shipping, and they're going to move 10 cars from Tennessee to Austin or whatever. I'm just making this up as we go. But what's happening in between there is title work. People aren't getting the title to their vehicle, and what's happening is Carvana is saying we'll send you a temporary tag. They send me a temporary Texas tag. It's only good for 90. I think it's 90 days or 60 days. I forget what it is here, but they're saying, oh, okay, your temporary tag. Oh, there's still some complication with the title. Don't worry. We'll send you another temporary tag. But why is this one from Oklahoma? So
Well,
they're doing some
in state to state, anytime you're moving something like that state to state, every state's
yeah,
different when it comes to
yeah, so
registration and title.
complicated. Yeah.
So that again, Carvana has gotten themselves in a situation where they're not handling the back end of the business
Right.
very well. Whether it's just lack of knowledge or look, and when you talk about state to state, and when you talk about moving money around, and that's really what we're doing,
yeah.
money, moving cars, right, or whatever.
Right.
One little thing can get. I know of a company, a franchise company that was on the up several years, 6, 7 years ago now,
Right.
but they were on their way through the roof. Like they were
Right.
going, right, as a franchise model. It was a Canadian company, and they were
Right.
franchising into the United States, and they had several successful businesses, franchises that were bought that were going crazy. They sold one of these franchises in Las Vegas, Nevada. The
Right.
business failed, not because of the company, but because the person running it that had bought the franchise didn't
Right.
do anything. And the company
Right.
failed. And what does a shady person do when the company fails? They blame the franchise, right?
Yeah.
Franchisor in this
Yeah,
case.
the franchisor.
Franchisor sued them, right? As a franchisor, the company thought that they were all good because he had signed all the documents, right, or
Right,
whatever.
yeah.
However, in Vegas, there's a unique form to the state of Las Vegas, Nevada,
Right.
There's a unique form in Nevada. If you're franchising in Nevada, they also have to sign this. It's only in Nevada. Well, guess what? They didn't know that. He never signed it. So what happened in court?
He
He
won.
shut him
Yeah.
down. He won so much money that it forced the company into bankruptcy because
Wow.
they didn't know, right, that in Nevada they had to sign this one extra form.
Right. Which
And
why wouldn't they? A company of this size should go hire a local, franchise attorney, right?
but they don't. They don't. Companies like
Stupid.
Carvana, because they go, wait a minute, if I have to hire a lawyer in every state I'm doing business in,
It's
right?
too much money. Yeah.
They just don't make that investment. Now,
Right.
ultimately, they do, right?
Well.
They ultimately you do, right? But you in the beginning it's difficult, and they
Yeah.
don't, and then this is the problem that's it's caused. And once that snowball starts, it gets
Right.
harder and harder to stop because it
Right.
piles.
It's a Ponzi scheme. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It's like a Ponzi scheme in the sense that you keep thinking that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I'll get enough money.
Right.
I'll pay everybody back. It's all going to be good. We're going to square away all the titles. It's all going to be fine. But what ends up happening is it collapses before you reach that point, just because the weight of your own stupidity ends up killing it. So
Absolutely, and it happens to company after company. This is just a great example. Carvana's just going through one of those, and maybe they do reach the light at the end of the tunnel. But I think by the time they even get close, Ford, General Motors are just going to copy their model using
yeah,
their
and
in their. I mean, just think about the infrastructure that General Motors and Ford already has with these dealerships. There's
correct.
already trucks taking cars to Austin, Texas every day.
Yeah, there's
Carvana can't
already.
compete with that.
Of
They
course
can't
not.
go out and hire independent truckers
Yeah,
for
they don't. The infrastructure that these companies already have is so massive. I'm surprised that they didn't do this earlier. CarMax was started by the same guy who created Circuit City. And he came in and he's like, "Man, why is nobody like creating a national brand?" And that guy created a trend where these big car companies like Park Place, um, and Auto Nation and all this other stuff,
Mm-hmm.
they would go do this roll up strategy where they would go find a mom and pop dealer for Ford, and they would say, okay, we're going to buy up your dealership. And so, Park Place and Auto Nation, all these companies, now they have a huge, massive network. And all that's happened is Carvana said, we can do exactly what they're doing, except on used cars and CarMax for this matter. And we just have this network effect of these large network of vehicles. We can move them around.
Mm-hmm.
The unit economics starts to make a lot of sense. It blows my mind that Ford, Chrysler, none of these companies said, we're going to figure out an end run around this new car legislation that forces us to use a franchise model. And
Mm-hmm.
we're going to create a used car business. I'm surprised that they haven't done that before.
The dealerships have been so powerful for so long.
Their lobby, the dealership lobby is so powerful
They are. They really
because
are.
it is and I hate to use this phrase, it's a rent seeking kind of business where the value proposition is always murky. And
Mm-hmm.
without the government forcing this model onto the consumer, I'm unsure that this model would exist. But I do think that automotive retail, as used like CarMax proves that you can be as transparent as anybody can be in the industry and still make tons of money. And your employees wear
Mm-hmm.
polo shirts and shorts to work. So I think that
Yeah.
I'm surprised this has been done before.
No. But it's gonna be, to me, the interesting part will be to see how this plays out. Is General Motors playing the long con to just get rid of the dealerships, at
That's what
least
I
to
think it
some
is. Yeah.
extent,
Yes, to some
or
extent.
is this just them leaning on the dealerships enough to create some stability? Right? We want more say on how you sell these cars, how you treat
Right.
customers, how you deal with situations,
And
and which one's going to give? Because
right.
General Motors could be going to the dealerships, going, "Hey, this is our step one to
Yeah.
go around you because you haven't
And
listened for decades."
so General Motors and Ford, I know this for a fact, have imposed in the last 10 years significant measures on their dealers. And if you
Mm-hmm.
go from Austin to Dallas, to Kansas City, to Florida. And if you had looked 15 years ago, every single dealership you would have driven to would look different. But you
Right.
go today, every single dealership almost looks the same. So they've been imposing further and further restrictions. I know a
Mm-hmm.
guy who owned a Chevy, Kia, and Dodge dealer that were all one building, and he
Mm-hmm.
had to remodel and turn them into separate buildings that were
Yeah.
this close to each other, but he had to turn them all into separate buildings because each of those franchises required that from him, and he didn't
Mm-hmm.
have. So long as they didn't, they're literally the legal mandatory, I think, 5 feet apart or something, because that's what the locale requires.
And if you want to continue to sell my product, you're going to do it. That
Yeah,
was not always leverage that General Motors, Ford, and them had. They were
correct.
at the
The mercy of the
the
dealer.
mercy of the dealerships because they couldn't. There are laws in
Yeah,
all 50 states that
yeah,
say that General Motors and Ford and these other companies
can't do it.
can't go directly to consumer, and that gave dealerships leverage in a world before the internet.
But the internet has now changed that world so much that now General Motors is the one with the leverage. So, anyways, it's interesting to see this. The business hasn't quite launched. We'll do a follow up on our Patreon once the business launches, and we'll actually see how it works, and we'll give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Probably going to suck. That's just my opinion. We don't know that for a fact.